Hi, this is Jonathan Rosenhead, a Torah and Psychotherapist. This week's Torah and Psychology post, we're going to look at an idea which is relevant for this week's Parsha, for Vayelech, and for Teshuva. And that's going to, first of all, to start off, we're going to discuss the idea of addiction. Addiction, on a basic level, is when somebody, either because we could say a personality type, or because of the emotional state that they're in, are looking for some distraction, something to fill a gap. That it could be at the beginning that it's perhaps some addictive behavior that maybe even begins on a simple level of something fun, but as an underlying understanding, there is something based on the emotional state, the personality type, that they are looking for something as a replacement, something to fill a gap, something to give meaning and purpose in an unhealthy way. And the addiction then goes through it's a downward spiral, a deleterious effect where this insidious process of addiction starts to kick in. It begins with something small, and slowly a person starts to be trapped in the trappings of addiction, where it becomes it takes over, it starts to take control and becomes the fixed feature in a person's life. What began as curiosity, what began as a simple, maybe an interest in trying to find something to give meaning, pleasure, to fill a gap, it starts to take over, and suddenly a person is stuck and doesn't know how to get out of this painful state of addiction. I say painful because actually it's paradoxical, because addiction provides two, in a sense, it's a dual process. On the one hand, there's something which is temporarily therapeutic, something which gives a temporary relief, where they feel good for a moment, but at the same time, that in itself is the source of the pain and the suffering. And this is why addiction is so hard to get out of. And we can look at this week's Parsha, and also for Teshuva, and see how this is an important message that taps into the process of addiction. Because the Pasuk talks about hesteponim. Hesteponim is a profound concept, abstract, profound concept that requires more time to actually describe, but it's actually interesting that the Torah, perhaps actually noticing and understanding that hesteponim is a difficult concept, repeats it twice. Now I say this in a facetious way because the Torah doesn't repeat itself, the Torah, unless it's necessary. The Torah doesn't just say things twice for no reason. So for the Pesukim in this week's Parsha, to describe the concept of hesteponim, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu removes his presence, and it's presented in two Pesukim in close succession, it seems that this is unnecessary. It's a tautology that is presented in the Pesukim that we need to understand. And the Rishonim take their time and notice this, and they want to try to understand why is hesteponim repeated twice. And there's a number of different Rishonim. And one of them I'm going to focus on is the Sfono. So the Sfono says that we see that the Pasuk describes how the Bnei Yisrael will go off and be swayed by other gods. And therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu will remove his presence, remove his face. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu repeats saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will remove his face again because the Bnei Yisrael continued or went off with other gods. It seems repetitive, seems unnecessary, but the Sfono says is that it's actually, it's reinforcing an idea that is the tenet of our Amunah and also a Teshuva process. That the first hesteponim is seemingly it's the response, it's the automatic response that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will remove his face, remove his presence, because we go off and are swayed and follow other gods. But it's all an illusion. The Sfono is saying it's all an illusion, it's a facade, that we have to understand that the HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always there, is always with us. But what is the repetition in the second pasuk is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through hesteponim, creates a space to do teshuva, creates a space to say, come back to me. I am always here. Our relationship is still intact. You can come back. But the Bnei Yisrael then go off, and instead of using HaKadosh Baruch Hu as a source of teshuva to come back and reconnect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they then continue and go off to be swayed by the other gods and continue to follow the other gods, reinforcing the hesteponim. That is the repetition of the hesteponim. And the Sfono is therefore saying that the dynamic of the relationship through hesteponim is that the relationship is being stretched. but the Kodesh Baruch Hu comes with us. When we remove ourselves, the Kodesh Baruch Hu comes with us. When we go into Golos, the Kodesh Baruch Hu goes into Golos with us. And this is the message of Teshuva, that the Kodesh Baruch Hu is always there with us. The Hester Panim is creating this space for Teshuva. It's up to us to recognize that and to do Teshuva and to reconnect. But unfortunately, what is being presented in the Psukim, this double, the tautology, the repetition of this Hester Panim, is that we are trapped. We become trapped in the addiction of following other gods. What started off as mere curiosity, being exposed to other nations, being exposed to other gods, and it started to be swayed and interested and maybe just trying things out. But it was filling a gap that didn't need to be filled, that we should have been satiated and actually feel a sense of connection and purpose in our life because of HaKadosh Baruch Hu being our God. We shouldn't need to find any replacement. But this is the effect of the addiction, this downward spiral, this effect as we start to be trapped by the addiction of Avodah Zarah, the addiction of other gods. And suddenly we're trapped, and instead of seeking God and seeking out Hashem to do Teshuva, we continue through the addiction. As we said, it's both of this dual process of the sense of temporary relief and also the source of the pain. And that's where we're stuck. We get stuck in the following other gods. We get this is a reinforcement of Hester Panim that we need to notice and recognize, and that's being expressed in this week's Parsha. And we therefore, as a message for Shabbat Shuvah, is that it gives us we have this opportunity through the Aseret Yemei Teshuvah to stop and to recognize that maybe we're trapped, maybe we're stuck in the trappings of addiction, of being swayed towards doing Averos. And this is the opportunity to recognize that the Kodesh Baruch Hu is with us. The Kodesh Baruch Hu is always with us, and to reconnect and to strengthen. And therefore we will see that this Hester Panim was all just an illusion. The Kodesh Baruch Hu is waiting there to take us back in again. And that is the key that we can find in this week's Parsha as preparation for Shabbat Shuvah and for Yom Kippur. Have a great Shabbos and keep well.